Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Thomas Welch.
I'm Josh Hyman.
We got a fun episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the Olympics or the lack thereof. The league has suspended the Olympics for the foreseeable future, so it's not great for the players. Josh and I know that a lot of them were very excited to go overseas and play for their country. We're also going to be talking about the Winter Classic. We're going to be talking about more COVID protocol, and apparently there's some talk about potential for a taxi squad moving forward. But we're going to break that all down. But first, I want to thank you guys once again for making us your first listen of the day. If you're sipping on us with your cup of coffee on your morning commute to work, maybe while you're opening presents in that holiday season, that'd be kind of cool. Have us on in the background, whatever it might be. We thank you guys dearly for that. Now, Josh, hopping right into it. The Olympics are not happening. It sucks for everyone around. I feel like it's always an electric time of year, but especially for the players. I know a couple of players have spoken out and said it really sucks for them. Specifically, Steven Stamkos said he's probably never going to get to play in another one. So what are your thoughts? And obviously, Doug Armstrong had a huge part in this too, because he's the head man in charge when it comes to the Team Canada. So what are your initial thoughts hearing the news and how it affects, I guess, specifically Doug Armstrong? Because we really could have seen his creation of a team, and it sounded like a lot of people were thinking he was going to put Tom Wilson on his team, which I feel like would have created a bunch of waves. But the guy's been having a fantastic season so far too. So just kind of throwing all of those ideas at you right off the jump. How did you think Doug Armstrong's team was going to look, and how disappointed are you that the Olympics aren't going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is something that's kind of been brewing for a couple of weeks now. Even like when the season started, the Olympics weren't a 100% guarantee. Obviously no one could have foreseen the Omicron variant wreaking as much havoc as it did. So I don't think anyone really foresaw it falling apart as quickly as it did. But the worries were definitely there from the beginning of the season of like, well, just in case, we got these other plans in place. And then lately, these past few weeks when things started getting really crazy, I think it pretty much was all but guaranteed that the Olympics weren't going to happen. And I'm super bummed as a fan. It's something that I really missed in last Winter Olympics. Didn't have NHL players, and that was a real bummer. It's something that's really exciting to watch. There's been so many iconic moments in the past: Crosby's golden goal, TJ Sochi, so many different events you can point to of just extremely memorable hockey events, because then it's not, oh, who's your favorite team, who's your favorite player, Stanley Cup, this, that. It's just a time where you can sit down and watch the best hockey players in the world play for their country, something that they take a heck of a lot of pride in. Unfortunately, yet another facet of hockey falling victim to COVID-19. And that is the Olympics this year. But the other end of that, us as Blues fans kind of selfishly can say, not only do we miss out on the Olympics, we missed out on our general manager having the opportunity to sort of strut his stuff at an international level and construct a team, which, I figured was going to be top of the competition. It helps when you're Team Canada, who's pretty much always going to be expected to be number one, number two, number three. In any given Olympics. But it would have been really exciting to see this team he put together. A guy like Jordan Binnington was getting his name tossed around to be the starting goalie. A guy like Ryan O'Reilly would have been able to represent his country. But then you look at other nations as well. I would have loved to see, I don't know how possible it was, but I would love to see, Tarasenko and Buchnevich playing on a line together for Team Russia, given how well they played for the Blues. There's a lot that the NHL was missing out on without going to the Olympics. But to answer your question with Doug Armstrong, I think it would have been a really good opportunity for him to sort of flex his muscles as not just a general manager for an NHL team, but the chance to get himself a gold medal, which I think that would have been a pretty good opportunity with the roster Canada would have been able to put together this year.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest takeaways for me with the Olympics is always the rivalry between USA and Canada, right? And we see the same thing with World Juniors, which we're going to talk about later on in this podcast. But I came across an interesting tweet the other day, and I want to share it with you, Josh. I'm gonna see who tagged me in this. Jake Lamp tagged me in this, so appreciate you for spreading the knowledge. But the tweet asks if the tide is turning in international hockey, and notes the top scorers, the top score, I guess not goal scorers, just top scorers from 2016 to 2020 NHL drafts. So for the United States, it's Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Alex DeBrincat, and Clayton Keller. Matthews has 384 points. Tkachuk has 301. Alex DeBrincat has 252. Clayton Keller has 215. Number one for Canada is Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he has 204. So the top four of the United States all have more than the top one of Canada. So do you think there's a shift there? Maybe a continental divide? A little bit of wordplay there. But because it feels like Canada has always ruled supreme when it comes to hockey, right? And as far as these stats show, when it comes to scoring, putting the puck in the back of the net and setting up goals, so getting assists as well, it seems like America's kind of edged them out in recent years.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been. I think it ties into the youth movement that we've seen in the NHL recently. I think hockey's gotten a little bit cooler lately as well. I mean, a guy that sticks out to me is
Trevor
Zegras.
Zegras. Yeah.
Boom. Trevor Zegras
Cool.
is the coolest guy around. I got the surfer flow, the laid back attitude. I mean, his reaction to his lacrosse assist, where he's just like, "Oh my god, it's fun to watch. Therefore, it's fun to play." You got guys like Trevor Zegras out there, Austin Matthews out there, making their way through to international media, not just the hockey media that is pretty much only consumed by hockey fans. That Trevor Zegras goal was the first time I had some of my friends come up to me who didn't follow hockey, be like, "Hey, did you see the thing that Ducks player did? That was a pretty cool goal." I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't know you knew what hockey was." So it's making waves, and it's gonna be something that continues to have like a ripple effect on the league. The US has always been right there with Canada, but I think with hockey getting, like I said, a little bit cooler as of late, especially for some of the US guys, which maybe you'd say started with Austin Matthews when he sort of took the league by storm, not just with his play, but with his style and his personality and all that. It just makes hockey all that much more appealing. And I think that's a big part of it. You get when it comes down to it, you're going to have these multi-sport athletes, especially in the States, who could play hockey, but they could also play lacrosse, they could play baseball, they could play football, they could play whatever. A lot of times these guys have offers from multiple different sports. And the more popular hockey is, the more you're going to get really talented athletes that continue to play it. And JTAP says in chat, ESPN picking up the NHL is another huge part of it, getting more eyes on the game. But yeah, I think the U.S. is definitely making a push, and it would have been really nice to see them perform in the Olympics. But we still get to watch them in World Juniors, which is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'll throw that one over to you, Tom.
We do get to watch them in World Juniors. We're big on international hockey here, if you can't tell, at Locked On Blue. So we're going to continue with that theme. But first, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Stat Hero, because no one plays daily fantasy sports to lose. Winning feels so much better, but traditional fantasy sports are a long-term losing proposition because you never know who or what you're up against. Stat Hero is the first of its kind daily fantasy sports platform where it's you versus the house in head-to-head fantasy matchups, winner take all. And here's the crazy part. Stat Hero shows you their lineups before you play, and you handpick the team you want to face one-on-one. This never-before-seen innovation of fantasy sports and sports betting hybrid has Stat Hero players clocking odds that are over 4 times better. Why? Because you don't have to compete against thousands of experts or unknowns. Stat Hero puts you in control of your fate. With Stat Hero, you are in control of the stakes. You decide how much you're going to play for, and Stat Hero has no choice but to take it because they're daring you to beat them. So sign up for free right now at stathero.com/hockey and use the promo code hockey for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/hockey. Use promo code hockey for a 100% match. StatHero.com/hockey, promo code hockey. Terms and conditions apply. When we come back, World Juniors Classic started today. The Blues have a couple players in the tournament, and they're also already making waves, so don't go anywhere. All right, Josh. So some big names for the St. Louis Blues. Tanner Dickinson, Dylan Peterson for Team America have been selected to the World Juniors. They are Blues prospects. They were selected in the 3rd and 4th round of the 2020 draft. In the same draft, and mind you, this team that we're talking about here has 6 first-round picks collectively, and both these guys were picked in late rounds. So just another example of Doug Armstrong's brilliance when it comes to draft day. Oh, and yeah, by the way, Jake Neighbors made his team as well. Has the A on his jersey and had an A on the night. He has an assist already. Tanner Dickinson scored as well. So what are you most excited about for World Juniors? Is it the international aspect that we've been talking about? Is it the fact that it's just hockey that's currently going on when the rest of the world is standing still? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything that you sort of touched on there. It's, first of all, just I miss hockey right now, so having something that you can go watch is great. But
Respect.
it also gives an opportunity to watch guys that you've really only seen grainy highlights of on Twitter. The junior hockey doesn't get the love that it deserves. You got some really talented young guys playing all across Canada and other places. Dickinson, Neighbors, and Pearson, I believe, are all in one of those leagues. I don't quote me on that though; I might be wrong. So there are 3 guys that I've been really excited about. That just obviously we saw Neighbors up with the Blues, but other than that, it's been kind of hard to follow their seasons just because, like I said, it doesn't get the coverage that maybe it deserves. So being able to watch these guys and see what they could do at an international level where they're really playing in some of the biggest hockey games of their life up until this point, it's a great opportunity to see, what your favorite country can go out and offer. But also, if you're a Blues fan, you can watch guys like Tanner Dickinson, who was picked in the 4th round, who was all of a sudden looking like he might have been a big steal. If he goes out and has a big World Juniors tournament, that can be a huge motivation factor for him to close out the season strong and push for a roster spot next year for the Blues. Jake Neighbors with a leadership role for Team Canada, a team that is absolutely stacked. Having him get an A is huge. It's going to do wonders for him, for his progression and his ability to lead, which I think he has shown, when we talked to him on this show a year and a half ago, whenever that may have been. He showed that I think he was kind of wise beyond his years, and having him be in a leadership position is going to be great. But just all in all, Peterson in the NCAA, I was 2 for 3. Yeah, it's just all in all watching guys that you maybe don't give as much attention as they deserve, guys that could be making an impact on the big club, sooner rather than later, showcasing their skills in front of the world at an international level is so exciting. It's like I said, a lot of these guys is going to be playing the biggest games of their career up until this point, and I'm excited to see that.
I'm excited to see Connor Bedard too. I mean, the dude is 16 years old playing World Juniors. Yeah, he's one of 6, I believe, which includes Gretzky, Crosby, Lindros, Spezza, Jay Bouwmeester, and Connor McDavid. So, I mean, that's pretty good company to be in for this guy who looks like, at the minute, he looks like a surefire first-round pick, if not the first overall pick. But it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of fits in with all these guys that are first-round picks, Owen Power, Kent Johnson, all these guys. So it's always exciting. And for me, it's huge, right? It's like watching these guys it's like the beginning steps of fulfilling their dream, because at the end of the day, you get drafted, right? But then you're also going to go play for your country. And as we know well as Blues fans, the World Juniors is really it plays a big part in your development and what coaches and other teams and other scouts think of you. Just look at Joel Hofer. I mean, dude had a lights out performance in World Juniors, and he's pretty much rode that performance all the way to making his NHL debut. So at the end of the day, it can really I don't think it can make or break you, but it can really boost your stock as a player. Trevor Zegras had the same performance in World Juniors. So I think we're going to see someone really fully take the reins, whether it be on Canada, USA, or on a different team, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that person is a Blues prospect, like you said.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see like a sport like hockey where it's so like worldwide, and there's just so much talent in so many leagues, compared to like I'm a big basketball fan, but basketball teams, they're putting out 5 starters and they're maybe playing 9 guys total all night. It's very limited in terms of like guys that you can see from year to year. You're not seeing much change in terms of like prospects and exciting players. You're not really seeing guys come out of nowhere and establish themselves as much in a lot of other sports, just because it's not the talent pool isn't as wide as it is with something like hockey, where you have 4 leagues in every country, and professional leagues that rival American. Like the KHL is, I don't want to say it's close to the NHL, but it's hard to find another sport where you got leagues as competitive other than the top American league like there is with hockey. So something like the World Juniors is a great opportunity for guys that have been flying under the radar to really establish themselves and say like, hey, I might be making a name for myself in the NHL sooner rather than later. We've seen it in the past. Like you said, Joel Hofer was kind of middling in the middle of the Blues goalie depth. And then all of a sudden he has this spectacular World Juniors, propels himself to the 3rd string position, comes in for the Blues and performs really, really well. You could argue that if it weren't for his World Juniors performance, maybe he wouldn't have been as high up on the list for the St. Louis Blues when they were looking for a goalie to call up. Because you got guys like Evan Fitzpatrick who were making a name for themselves. Colton Ellis as well. There's a lot of competition there. So it's just an opportunity, like we've both been saying, for under the radar guys to come in and play for their country, make themselves proud, and just, prove themselves, prove why they deserve an NHL roster spot in the coming seasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's another opportunity for yourself as a fan to be like, ha, I told you so, right? And
Right.
one of those players that I'm hoping is going to turn out for me, is on Team America. Josh, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, is Matthew Coronado. Because
yeah, we talked about him a lot.
Yeah, back in the draft, he was really a guy that I was huge on. I think he brings a fantastic scoring touch, one of the best in the draft. I was hoping the Blues would get him. Obviously, that didn't happen. But it's still an opportunity for, like, he got drafted, right? And he's going to be playing in this game. So every time he scores, I can be like, hey, you know what? Like, pin that one on my laurels. Maybe I nailed it. Or maybe he comes out and just has an absolute stinker. Like, and I'll be the first one to admit, hey, might have missed that one. We'll lay up and shank it off the backboard. But that's what makes this sport so much fun, is like, you have like your initial fan base, right? And then you have like your country fan base, and then like your prospect fan base. And it's all these branches that kind of branch off for you to like not only cover your team, but cover the people surrounding your team and cover the people that are surrounding them. Like, if you really want to, you could do a full depth analysis on the line mates of Jake Neighbors and the line mates of who he plays with and where, like, anywhere he plays, right? So you could do a full depth analysis and be like, oh, they're like hindering his development, or they're actually boosting his development, and he's playing with more NHL caliber players, which will, in the long run, make him a smoother transition into the NHL if and when he plays the full first season. But that's what it is, man. It's just, it's going down the wormhole. It's like Alice in Wonderland. Once you go down there, you can't really go back. And I'm 100% down there. And that's why World Juniors is so much fun. And like I said, the young factor, and I think one of the biggest things with hockey, especially recently, that you've talked about, Josh, and that I've talked about for sure too, is these young guys aren't taking 5-6 years to come up and make a play in the NHL anymore. Like, they're coming right in and they're producing right away. I mean, Scott Perunovich, and you look at the St. Louis Thunderbirds, you might as well call them that at this point, because we've had so many guys go down with injuries and so many guys slotted in and step up. Nico Mikkola, Dakota Joshua, like the list goes on and on of young guys just coming in and being like, yeah, I'm ready for it. This is what I was born to do. This is why I got drafted. This is why I want to play. Slot me in there and I'll give it my best shot. And there's other guys across the league, the rookies, Lucas Raymond, Mo Sider. Like, these guys are just taking the league by storm from day one. There is no layover gap anymore. So watching these World Juniors, as much as you'd like to be like, oh yeah, like these guys are going to need some development, like they're not NHL ready, which is like, I feel like Don Cherry was like the preacher to the choir of that stuff. But way back in the day, like, oh, I'll never make it in the NHL. He's small. Yeah, dude, he also scored 57 goals. So maybe, I don't know, maybe he knows what he's doing. So I think that's why we get so excited for it now. And that's why it's like we've been excited for it, right? But now I feel like it's an even added pressure and an added factor because as much as there's talk about these guys are a ways away from playing in the NHL, I really don't think they are. Oh, there we go. There we go. Gotcha.
Oh, we're good. All right, we're back. We're
There we
back.
go. Okay.
Technical difficulties
I was
averted.
like, I don't know if chat could hear him. I didn't know if chat could hear him, so I was like, but yeah, okay, we're good.
All right. YouTube viewers, that's a fun technical difficulty that won't be on the podcast. So
You make a really good mime, though, to be honest.
hey, yeah, you know what? I've been working on my
Start doing
my.
Yeah.
Anyways, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by my microphone not working. Yeah, I think we've definitely seen a resurgence in the past few years of teams like the St. Louis Blues being more willing to give their young guys a chance. I think the Blues were definitely guilty of sort of sticking with that veteran presence, and not not giving their young guys a shot. We saw that with Jordan Kyrou. And I think all of a sudden this year, we've seen them be like, okay, wait, maybe these young guys can hang. Maybe they can play good hockey and do things for us. And that's what the World Juniors is for. It gives you a good opportunity to look at these young guys that, are hungry to make an impression on the NHL. And like I said, there's so much talent that's widespread. It's hard to crack an NHL roster. But a World Juniors performance is a great way to prove to your organization, your team, and the rest of the league as well, just why you deserve a spot in the NHL.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if you want to bet on the World Juniors, I don't know if Bet Online has odds running right now, but they should. So go do yourself a favor and check it out because Bet Online has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and the pro football playoffs. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKED ON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available at Bet Online, where the game starts. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Winter Classic because that is the hallowed game. Feels like that is the one game that's being protected right now. Shutting down the season is on the table. They've already paused the season. The Olympics are no longer happening, but the Winter Classic feels like it is gung-ho. So we're going to talk about that when we come back, so don't go anywhere. All right, Josh. So we touched on it a little bit in yesterday's episode, but this team historically has handled the Minnesota Wild pretty easily, right? I mean, you could make the argument that it was maybe not so easy when Jake Allen single-handedly stood on his head and stole us the series against them in the playoffs. But kind of since that time, haven't really felt threatened by the Minnesota Wild, especially last season when they were ahead of us in the standings and they seemed like an absolute wagon, and we were a struggling team last season, and we still managed to beat the brakes off of them. And I know Seth, if he's listening to this, will probably not appreciate that, but will also probably agree. So, Josh, in your opinion, what things are you most excited for the Winter Classic, and what is your analysis of where these two teams stand and where they stand in regards to each other? Because I feel like saying that historically the Blues have handled the Minnesota Wild should give them the confidence to be like, oh, it's just the Wild again. Like, go out and take care of business. And I feel like that kind of gives them an advantage in that regard. And maybe the Wild kind of have that in the back of their heads, and they have that vendetta. And so maybe they go out and play a little bit harder. Regardless, I feel like we're going to see a very good game, very close game. Cam Talbot's playing absolutely out of his mind. Jordan Binnington is a top 10 goalie, but I don't know if these teams are on the same planet right now. And I think the planet that is more beneficial is the one that the Minnesota Wild are on. So what's your kind of takeaway here, Josh? Lay it on me.
Yeah, I think the Blues and the Wild are two teams that are pretty similar in terms of where they're at right now. The Wild were going through a rebuild, and the Blues, were a more successful team, obviously winning a Stanley Cup. But that being said, they're both sort of at the same point. They both got a roster that's sort of half and half. Older guys that have done this before, that know what they're doing, um, and you can rely on night in, night out. And then a couple younger guys that are just taking the league by storm. Obviously, Dollar Bill Kirill um, lit the league on fire last season. Established himself as one of the best young guys in the NHL. So yeah, two teams that have really always played themselves pretty competitively. The Blues had the upper hand last year, but this season, the Wild, they're doing a really good job of proving why they're sort of out of the rebuild and into their next phase of hockey, which is great. Minnesota deserves a good hockey team. That being said, the pressure is going to be on them. They're hosting. There's a lot of pressure to put on a good show, which is going to start days before the game even happens, with all the events that they're going to be throwing. The festivities and all that to get the hype around the game. So, um, there's a decent chance that for the Minnesota Wild, this is the biggest game that they've played in a couple seasons. They've been out of the playoffs. They haven't really had a lot of like huge do or die games. So in terms of pressure and eyes on them, this is a huge game for the Minnesota Wild. That being said, if the Blues can come in and just kind of treat it as another day at the office, I think they're gonna do a good job. Like you said, they play well against the Wild in the past, and they play well in big games. I know they loved the Winter Classic that they played in St. Louis. So what's the difference, between this one? I hope that we go out, we see a really competitive game. I don't think we've seen a classic lately, except for the one that the Bruins are in. That was kind of a blowout. Um, but most of the Winter Classics we've seen in the past few seasons have been pretty competitive games, and I'm expecting this one to be no different.
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of on the same page as you. I feel like these teams are very similar, right? And the way that they're structured, I feel like maybe Minnesota's a little bit more offensively heavy than the Blues. I don't know, honestly, though. I honestly feel like Minnesota actually has a better defense. But they do have Kirill Kaprizov, who's just absolutely been lighting it up. But they also have Ryan Hartman, who's leading the team in goals right now, which I don't think anyone saw that coming. But for the St. Louis Blues, you also have Ivan Barbashev to kind of combat that, where no one saw him coming, but he's third on the team in importance right now. So it's a matter of
That's true.
And they've got, yeah, right. Yeah, Barbashev is third on the team in
What?
points. The whole Russian line is 1, 2, 3 on the team in points.
Oh yeah, I guess because Kyrie's been out with injury, that would make sense.
Yeah, and so Minnesota also has Foligno, who's shooting at a 28% clip right now, which is just absurd. Joel Eriksson Ek has had a good season again for the second year in a row. He looks fantastic. Kevin Fiala's always doing his thing. Matt Dumba's having a great season. So it feels like things are clicking for them all at the right time, right? And these players who necessarily, Zuccarello too, obviously, but who they didn't necessarily expect a lot from are all of a sudden some of the most dynamic forces on their team, especially Hartman. I mean, just absolutely lighting it up for him. He's been red hot. So I feel like for the Blues, you can kind of make the similar cases for Robert Thomas. Although in St. Louis, I think we'll be the first ones to tell you that everyone kind of expected a season like this from him at some point, a little breakout to where he's one of the top point producers on the team. But if you look at his expectations league wide, especially in like fantasy hockey, he was owned in like 0.5% of leagues, and like people just weren't really sold on him. And I guess the injury history doesn't help, but when you look at the playmaking ability, it's all there. So we're getting production from him. We're getting production from Jordan Kyrou once again, getting production from Nico Mikkola, Torrey Krug's returning to form. So I feel like all those things, obviously Vladimir Tarasenko leads the way in his resurgent season, and Pavel Buchnevich, newly acquired, looks red hot too. So I feel like these are two very balanced teams in terms of the way that they're constructed. I do think the Blues kind of have the edge offensively. I think Minnesota might have a better top line just because Kirill Kaprizov in the offensive zone is a nightmare. But when it comes to depth, the Blues got them beat. Defensively, I'll give the edge to. I'll probably give the edge to Minnesota. And then if we go goaltending, I'll probably give the edge to the Blues. So I really think it's a 50-50 shot here.
Yeah. Yeah. And as Richard Clay points out in chat, the high for the first in Minnesota is forecasted at 9 degrees. So it is going to be a cold one for these guys. I honestly feel worse for the coaches who got to sit on the bench and suffer through that. I'm hoping we get a return of the beautiful Letterman jackets that they were rocking last time. That wonderful funky hat that Hitch was wearing.
That was beautiful.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the style of these guys. It's gonna be fun, but it's gonna be a tough one. You catch a pass and your hand sting. You block a shot off the shin and you get that extra little sting from the cold. Oh man, it's gonna suck, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to Blues fans flooding those stands as well. So hopefully
yes,
be a lot of Winter Classic jerseys. Blues fans repping in Minnesota. Honestly, it doesn't matter how cold it is. Minnesota is a beautiful state. So it's your first time visiting. Have a great time. It's going to be right around New Year, so celebrate responsibly. But like I said, have a fantastic time. And those hours are gonna run short, and you're gonna run out of time fast there, much like we are today. So thank you guys so much for listening to the Locked On Blues podcast. Make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you're currently listening to, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thank you, Richard Clay, J-Tap, everybody in the chat on YouTube for helping us and talking to us. We always appreciate you guys. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Locked On Blues. You can follow me on Twitter at Twelcher15. You can follow Josh on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. But like I said, thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, let's go Blues.